Hey, what's going on, everyone? Syndicate Boogie here. Konnichiwa, Syndicate Boogie des. Welcome to my channel and welcome to another Space Signals full transmission. It is a lovely Friday. I hope everyone out there is doing well. Thank you for your ongoing support and engagement. Today we are going to talk about an interview that was posted recently. I don't know exactly when, I didn't check that part, but it's a two-part podcast interview. I was able to find the translation to at least part one, which is already a lot of content at 38 minutes long. And this was an interview of executive producer Simon, and the name of the podcast is Asian Filter. So I will post a link to the podcast and also a link to the translation, which was graciously posted by a YouTube account. Uh, Apologies, the name is escaping me again, but I believe it was um, Alpha's official fan club, XG official fan club, one of those two names, some variation of that name. But to whomever manages that account, thank you so much for the translation. I did include some screenshots of the translation, so I'll make sure that I cite my sources accordingly. There's a lot to cover in just part one of the interview. And what I'm going to do with part two is try to pull a transcript of the audio and just translate it myself and then give my thoughts on that sometime early next week. But I did want to go over my takeaways. Even with a lot to cover, there was, well, a lot within the interview, there was a handful of major points that were covered that really resonated with me and made me kind of sit back, pause the interview, and think about it quite a bit. And I think that they're worth discussing and hopefully are meaningful to you guys out there as well. So the first uh, point that I wanted to cover, I took notes here. Uh, Simon talks with the interview. Her name is Nana-san. Thank you so much for having the interview. They're friends, and they talk about XG's maturity and freedom at this age. So it's well known now that they are all at least the age of 20 or over, which is the age of maturity. 20 is the age of maturity. And now Simon has revealed that they are free to have more time with friends. They're free to explore romantic relationships. And a lot of the rules and restrictions that were adhered to early on in their development have now been lifted. And as a result of where they are right now in their career, Simon also looks at XG more like partners and peers. They have discussions about decisions, opinions, and how things should be approached, strategies, and things of that nature. And Simon really looks at them on equal grounding now, and it's a bit of a full circle moment for him to know that they've reached this point in their evolution. And I think a lot of alphas were happy to hear that they now have more time for themselves. Initially, there was a response that not having that free time early on felt a little bit too strict or restrictive. But from my own personal experience, when you are seeking a dream and seeking to reach a plateau that not many have reached, that comes with sacrifice and that comes with dedication to be able to stay totally focused on those dreams. You know, you have to give up a lot of things. And speaking from experience in martial arts, I know that all too well. I had a very strict teacher growing up. I started martial arts in my teens, but then I really didn't dedicate myself fully until my late teens, like 16 and 17. And I really wanted to pursue a higher goal in martial arts, in there was possibilities of even entering the Olympics because I believe wushu was going to be a martial art in event in 2008. Well, as a part of that, just working hard towards those goals and reaching a higher level of skill, my teacher, who was very strict, and he is from Hong Kong and really learned the traditional way, he really restricted a lot of things that we could do. And, those were the times that I was still growing up, and, going through high school, college. Well, during that time, me and my peers were not allowed to stay out late. We weren't allowed to party. We weren't allowed to have any relationships. And we definitely were not allowed to drink or explore those kinds of vices and bad habits. I mean, that's as a given. I don't condone that for anyone growing up, and I try to enforce those kinds of practices for anyone that I teach. But at the time, it really felt like a bigger deal because, those are the times when you start to interact with people and be at different social events and things. And those are the years that you grow up. Those are the years that people have certain experiences. And if you don't have the right kind of guidance, you don't have the right kind of people around you, things can have a negative impact on your life and your growing up and your upbringing. And if you're not equipped, if you don't have the emotional toolkit or the strength or backbone to really handle those experiences, it can really have a negative impact on everything you're doing, especially when you're trying to pursue a dream. So, in that regard, I can totally relate with how XG's upbringing was and why, at this point, they now have those restrictions lifted. They've put in the hard work, they've put in the sacrifice, they've achieved a level of accomplishment, and above all, as people, not only have they reached an age of maturity, but it's beyond just, the number. It's about the sum of their experiences, the sum of everything that they've learned, their wisdom, and that in effect has given them the toolkit to really be equipped to face the challenges that lie ahead in this new phase of their life, their 20s. They're going to be experiencing new things for sure. They're going to have new experiences with friends, possibly romantic relationships, and they're going to grow in different ways. And that's necessary. Those things are a part of life. Change is growth, and growth is evolution. Growth is wisdom, growth is knowledge, growth is understanding and awareness. And I think this is just all, a new cycle for XG. We've seen them evolve now from their debut and now their extraordinary genes. And they've put in the hard work, they've evolved and they've learned from the world tour, uh, how to manage their time better, how to approach fitness, energy level. We had a couple of scares there in the world tour, but we've got to realize that these are world-class artists. They have access to the facilities to improve their ability, their skills, their physical strength, their mental strength, and emotional strength. And they've got all the right people and family around them to give them the support that they need. So here we are now. Simon talks about, discussing things with XG and, hashing out whenever there's, a difference of opinion and strategy. So he really has a newfound level, not really a newfound, but he looks at them in a way that is more like a peer, like an equal, and he gives them that respect. So it is touching for him to hear, seeing them grow up and looking at them, from his point of view. He's been their big brother, their father, their mentor, and wearing all those hats and being able to adapt in a way that he can talk to them in those different roles and give them the right kind of guidance that they need or emotional support when they need it. Because that's a difficult thing to do when you have people in your life and you are in a position to give them guidance and wisdom. It's about the how you give it. Some people give tough love. Um, Even Simon has had to give that to them a bit early on just to kind of wake them up. But I think it's important to know when to really turn those gears in that direction, when to give tough love, when to give, a shoulder to lean on, when to give a listening ear, when to challenge things, and, when to give encouragement and kudos when credit is due. Um, a lot of those things are the challenge of leadership, challenge of mentorship, and it's also a learning experience for Simon too. Um, he's giving as much as he can from his own personal experiences, from being an idol himself in the K-pop industry, and also coming up as a music producer. And you know, now he's reached a certain plateau. He's reached a certain height of success, and I think through their own reflection now, they have a new frontier to explore, both as a group and also as individuals. So I really like how they touched upon where XG is now in their maturity, and I love that they have this sense of freedom now. And uh, they started off with that. He talks about all of them having a backbone now, which is so important, and he connects that to the core. Everyone has their core, and I think the backbone is one part of their core, but it's more than that. I feel like it's like their soul, their individuality, and we'll talk about that later. But yeah, he connects with how all of this is in alignment with their vision and their philosophy. So I think it's great that he's able to connect the dots and communicate about it in that way. So the next thing I wanted to talk about is their discussion on XG being a group artist and the concept of multiplication as given in the translation. Nana talks about, well, ask Simon, why in Western music don't we see group artists anymore? And Simon Simon's perspective, Simon's answer is that more, I mean, individual artists are followed more nowadays. Um, Back then, when there were a lot of boy bands, girl bands, group artists, things of that nature, back then, like Backstreet Boys, NSYNC, um, who else? Danny D. Kane, Pussycat Dolls. A lot of those artists um, uh, were they were more popular during the early 2000s and late 90s, but now it's evolved, and instead of looking at those artists which are more or less, they followed certain trends, and he called them media artists. So I feel like that translation and interpretation was that you know they were um, they were a group that were created to follow a certain trend or a certain success. So now, instead of looking at those things, he feels that fans of music nowadays really explore on their own. They look at things that really connect to them on an individual level, and he finds that fans gravitate and connect with artists that promote and create music that expresses their own individuality. And that makes sense. I mean, you look at the spectrum of all the popular artists today, we have so many solo artists across all genres, and they all have different flavors, different nuances, but you rarely see any groups, if any. I can't think of a group artist in Western music right now. I know there are some out there most likely, but you'd have to really, well, I have to think about it. If you guys know any out there that I should be paying attention to, let me know. Um, but yeah, he talks about XG and the challenge, not so much of a challenge, it's more like a challenge they look forward to now that they're here at this current evolution. He talks about members' individuality. We are here now. He looks back at the first 8 years, and they had been so single mind focused on promoting themselves as a group, but within that group space, still highlighting each member's individuality. And the translation calls it multiplication, like multiplying it. In my mind, I'm looking at that like amplifying it, like as a group, the group brings out each member's individuality to a higher plane, and shows the strengths of each individual even further. And um, I think that the fact that they were able to do that even from the very beginning, you look at the introduction of each member through the move videos, highlighting those characteristics and those personalities in that way, that already set the tone for establishing a connection with each of the individual members, because you can talk to any alpha out there that's a fan of XG, and they will be able to talk for hours about how much they love a single member, and also probably really be able to define their little unique quirks and personality traits that make each member unique. So in that sense, they were able to really successfully do that, um, within a group setting, because normally I say that, and I know that that's not true, I guess, in the Korean idol industry, but, looking at the Western, more global groups back then, I feel like there were favorites. There were definitely lead favorites within groups, and then there was smaller fandoms for other members in the group. Um, I know that's a general statement that might uh, hurt some other fans of groups, but I do think that's true. You look at NSYNC, uh, Justin felt like Justin seemed to be the face, and he's reached a certain level of success, but there's Team JC, and they go hard. And honestly, looking back at their catalog, being a fan of their music as well, JC could hold his own vocally too. Um, but when it comes to XG, they are all aces. They are able to have different charms, value, and strength in so many different areas, not just even their artist ability, but also their character ability. Um, each person has their way of making you smile, making you laugh, making you feel positive, and just bringing that positivity in your life. So I love that they talked about individuality being just as much of value as their group identity, and how multiplication plays into a factor, and it's something that they continue to practice through their evolution, because now he's defined their current phase as their rookies again. They've had that success as a group. Now they've got their first full album. They've changed their name. They are all at the age of maturity. And although this whole time they've been promoting themselves as a global group, now they're I feel like they're still right there in like the the beginning of the frontier. They're still making their paces and branching outward. The world and the universe is theirs to explore and grow even further. So that's where they are. They're going to do it as a group, but also hold on to their individuality, their backbone, and their essence. So yeah, really love that part of the interview. All right, moving right along. This is a very unique point that Simon made. Sound as a sustainable energy. They talk about the future and the value that he holds on to with the music that they create. Um, he looks at their music and his hope, his vision is that their music is something that will still resonate with people decades from now. That their music is going to be a commodity of value to whomever hears it, whether it's us decades from now, whether it's new generations of people. And he even said if aliens ever come in the next several decades, if ever they hear their music, he wants XG's work to be an energy that connects to people and connects to their emotions and brings positivity to their life. So I really thought that that was a profound way of thinking. And as wild and out there as it sounds just to talk about it and say it out loud, I mean, I love that ambition and I love that aim. And to aim for that, who talks like that, who thinks like that? But in this day and age, with the way that the world is, with technology evolving, communication evolving, the world getting smaller and bigger at the same time, this is a reasonable thought. This is a reasonable aim, in my opinion. And I think that them having that view of music as a sustainable energy is real. You know, in this current day and age, I talk about music being my life soundtrack. It's also a time capsule. It's a mood maker. It is energy. It is emotion. It's love. It's happiness. It's sadness. It's so many different things. It's context. It's perspective. It's therapy. So it is a commodity. People hold on to music. I do believe that during my formative years growing up, music helped me manage my emotions. It helped to manage through sadness, heartbreak, anger. It helped to promote motivation, encouragement, energy, hope. So, with sound, you can't touch sound, um, but sound can touch you. And you can't feel sound. Well, that's a lie. I think you can feel sound because it does move your emotions. But this intangible thing brings so much value. And I think to nurture and create good sound, good music will hold value on its own. Um, that is an important thing. And I love that that is his aim. So I'm going to close out with another very important point that he made in this interview, and that is the perspective of looking at things, whether it's their music, their work, their expression. He said it in a funny way, and I don't have the visual right in front of me, but basically his mindset is that, am I going to look at this 50 years from now and think this is lame? And that seems like a funny joke, but that's so true of how things age and how things are perceived. And the context of that comment is that um, they talk about longevity, sustainability. We talked about the sound as a sustainable energy. Um, he wants to make sure that XG's sound and I guess maybe all their artists moving forward, um, everything that they put out is authentic and true to their essence. He gives an example in context that a lot of groups could could easily reach numbers if numbers is your goal. And they talk about numbers. What are numbers? Numbers are views, ratings, money, um, those type of metrics. If you wanna, if your aim is metrics, you can get those by chasing trends or following, what other groups might be doing. But beyond all of that, beyond anything that might hold that kind of value, whether it's monetary, whether it's metric, or things of that nature, what's most important to him and to XG is that whatever they put out is true to them. It's true to their essence and true to their character, true to their philosophy. And um, Nana-san makes an important point that looking at fashion, because she's from the fashion industry, you often see brands find short-term success because they follow, trends. Um, but she finds the ones that survive are not the ones that follow that example. The ones that survive are the ones that stay true to themselves, things that they want to do because it represents who they are. So I think that is very important, and I think a lot of people, whether you're a new artist, whether you're a peer of XG, and I think the fans of XG, honestly, if I'm being real, need to really think about that statement because I know that a lot of people often ask, why aren't XG doing this? Why aren't XG doing that? They should be doing this, they should be doing that. If you see XG, the way that they communicate, the way they express themselves, and you see the true, sincere joy that they have doing what they do, and you see them having fun, and you see them putting out the content that they want to put out, I think that's more important than what many people on the outside looking in think that they should be doing. Um, in fact, we should be celebrating that they're one of the few artists that don't have to adhere to trends, that don't have to be bound to obligations. Aren't we all, in some way, in our own personal journeys? Um, I'm speaking from my own personal experience, but um, you know, every so often, I mean, parents put obligations on us, um, expectations, those kinds of things. But more often than not, do we really want to do those things, or do we want to do what's true to ourselves, what we want to do? So I feel like fans or non-fans that criticize those things or put those opinions out there really need to check, the perspective that they're coming from, because those kinds of statements and that kind of thinking is putting XG in a box. It's putting them in a boundary. It's making them adhere to certain obligations and things that we, I don't mean myself for sure, but I mean the people collectively think they should be doing. They're gonna stay true to their essence. They're gonna do what they do to make them happy, and that's what's most important. At the end of the day, they want to look back at this decades from now. Uh, I don't even want to think about them as grandmas right now, but Simon described it that way. But they're going to be looking at this, and we want to see them look back at this and smile. Maybe, probably show tears of happiness, um, and live a life of no regrets. So, Um, I think that that was very touching that he talked about things in that way. And truthfully, a lot of these points that he made are talking to me in a very personal way as well. And I'm going to really reflect on those points and think about how to make those best practices in my own life. And I hope to whomever hears or reads that translation, or even hears the words that I'm saying in this video, think about that, and hopefully it brings value to your own life and makes you think about the person that you want to become. Um, Everyone is unique, and everyone has their own personal wishes for themselves, their own goals. Hopefully they do. But we all just have to lift each other up and support each other and celebrate each other, and you know, do our best to keep pushing forward and reach our dreams with all our strength. We got to take the world with our own two hands. So that's all I've got. I think I have yapped quite a bit. So thank you for hearing this. Let me know if any of this part one interview resonates with you in the same way that it touched me. And until the next video, you guys take care out there. I think we might be getting more snow this weekend. I hope not, to be honest. But if you are on the east coast of the US, please take care. Bundle up, stay warm, wear boots, watch your step. Yeah, and be authentic, be true, be you. Peace.